Hi there, my name's David Kowalik from Godwit Ministries, and you join me today to look at one of the most significant subjects in the Bible, and that subject is glory. So what exactly is glory? Well, from a biblical point of view. Now, glory is one of those things that we know when we've encountered it, but it can be difficult to explain. Sometimes, when you least expect it, and in the most unlikely of places, you get an opportunity to encounter glory. Now, something like this happened to me one day in the arrivals lounge at Sydney's International Airport. There I was, minding my own business, thumbing my way through a dull book while I was waiting for a friend to arrive. And all around the airport, there were walls of television screens that were displaying the 1996 Olympic Games to the constant stream of tired travellers as they passed through the airport. Now, at this time, the 1,500 metre freestyle swimming final had just begun, and one of Australia's favourite sons was taking part. Kieran Perkins, who had claimed the gold medal in the previous Olympics, was out to defend his title. But a combination of sickness and injury and a promising crop of younger swimmers all looked set to sideline the former champion. No one expected Kieran to even get past the heats, yet somehow he'd scraped into the slow lane for the final, and there he was plunging into the water, all captured on the larger-than-life banks of video vision for everyone to see. Now, as Kieran steadily carved his way through the water, I steadily lost interest in my book. Stroke by stroke, second by second, it became increasingly evident that Kieran might just be about to make Olympic history and win the event for an unprecedented second time. Now, a hush fell upon the crowds in the airport as every eye and ear was fixed on the screens as we all dared to hope for an impossible victory. Even before the final lap, everyone in the airport was up out of their chairs as they urged him on. When, at last, Kieran did in fact touch the wall in first place, we all erupted in spontaneous cheering and backslapping and warm embraces, and tears flowed freely and beaming smiles were seen in every direction, and not least my own. Now, I'm quite certain that flights were missed that day and others were delayed, so mesmerising was the moment of that event. And there it was, a glimpse of magnificent, unplanned glory. Now, over the years, I've often reflected on moments like these, and it seems clear to me that, glimpses of glory such as these occupy our collective imagination far more than we probably realise. I believe glory is the intangible, something that we seek in nature and in the arts and in the sporting arena and in close relationships and, of course, in worship. Yet it seems to me that we're not entirely certain just what this glory really is. We recognise its presence when we encounter it, but where it comes from or where it's heading, we hardly know. Now, the word glory is being used in all kinds of contexts, but unfortunately, we mostly use it in a fairly frivolous way, and I think it might be safe to say that we've lost sight of its real meaning. In the church, for instance, the word glory is particularly misunderstood and poorly appreciated. It seems most people only have an ethereal notion of what glory is, thinking of it as some kind of pie-in-the-sky place that we say people have passed on to. Sometimes it's thrown around as an adjective. It was a glorious day, or other times we use it verbally. Glory to God for the great things he has done. And that's fine, I guess. But generally it's used vaguely, which is a pity because glory is a profound word. No simple definition can really do it justice, but I will try to put forward a simple biblical idea which might help us to rediscover this most important and significant truth. Put very simply, glory is the essential nature and reality of any given thing or person at its fullest and best. I'll say that again. Glory is the essential nature or reality of any given thing or person at its fullest and best. Now, there are over 20 words that are used in the Bible that are translated to glory in the English language. And I'm not going to go into all the details of all those words, just the main words. In the Old Testament, the main Hebrew word that's used for glory, or is translated to glory, is kabod, which means weight or heaviness. The writers were using this word to say something about the substance of a thing. You know, when we feel the weight of something, we get an impression of its mass and its significance. Say a heavy book, for instance. We talk about, you know, that was a really heavy read. Now, in the New Testament, the writers mainly use the Greek word doxa, which means the apparent worth or seeming substance of or dignity of something. So glory can be used to talk about moments when something or someone is seen as they really are, in an unobstructed display of being or reality. You know, when Kieran Perkins won his second gold medal, he was revealed as an extraordinary swimmer, and something of the substance of his character was revealed in that victory. And that's getting us closer to the way the biblical writers use this word glory. You know, even the slang phrase, "there he was in all his glory," as a euphemism for nakedness, is actually getting us very close to the way the biblical writers use the word glory. So glory is all about the unveiled reality or significance of something. So glory is not an achievement, nor is it a place that we go to. We can grow in appreciation of glory, or we can come to recognize it, but we can't acquire it. It just is what it is. You see, the fullest and the best of each thing doesn't require our observation in order for it to exist. Nevertheless, this brings us to another crucial aspect of glory, which is often overlooked, and it's this. It's the self-revelatory nature of glory. In the Bible, glory is often associated with the idea of radiance or shining splendor. And this certainly captures something of the self-revealing nature of glory. Glory is always showing something to us. It's almost as if it is intentionally pointing us in a certain direction and helping us to see something. Let me illustrate this. I'm a bird watcher, although I hardly blame myself for becoming so. I always imagined bird watchers to be an eccentric bunch, more than a little detached from reality. The more robust pursuits of fishing and bushwalking had arrested my attention until my father-in-law, an ardent bird watcher himself, gave me a pair of binoculars for Christmas one year. I had no idea at the time that this was to be the beginning of a lifelong pursuit of all things bird-related. Now, the binoculars were not to blame. The real protagonist in my unwitting slide into the world of ornithology was a tiny little bird known as a rainbow bee-eater. I had previously been aware of many of the common and larger birds, but I'd never really noticed the amazing variety and colour that birds bring to an average suburban garden, let alone the incredible diversity to be encountered in the wild. Now, when my binoculars focused on that little bird one summer afternoon, everything changed. The vivid hues of electric blue and iridescent orange dazzled me, and the sheer beauty and the sprightly movements of this otherwise insignificant bird completely overwhelmed me. You see, the binoculars gave me new eyes, and for the first time all the little nondescript brown birds which had passed by unnoticed before suddenly captivated my attention. The binoculars glorified the birds, so to speak. They allowed me to see them as they really were. Glorification, you see, is the revelation of glory. It's magnificence revealed, and so it is with all kinds of glory. The more clearly we see something, the more we appreciate its essential nature. Therefore, we appreciate its glory. And we're surrounded by countless kinds of glory if we really care to see. There's a whole world of sights and sounds and sensations in every bit of creation, from the rhythm of a river, the feel of sand underfoot, the warmth of the sun, the fragrance of a forest, to the tumult of a storm, or the savagery of a lion, to the violence of a volcano. Yet all these things, wonderful though they are only the leading edge of glory. There are immeasurable and infinite degrees of glory in all the intangible aspects of creation, such as the wonder of friendship, the beauty of music, the mystery of mercy, or the virtue of courage. Just for instance, everything has its own particular degree and kind of glory. Now, of course, all glory originates from God, and in the end, it points back to Him. God is somehow revealed in the unique glory of every single created thing. Take ducks, for instance. Ducks have duck glory. Duck glory is seen when ducks simply be ducks and do the sort of things that ducks do. And each species of duck has a distinct contribution to make to our understanding of ducks. And every individual adds yet another subtle nuance to the overall appreciation of duck glory. Now, we can come to understand something of the nature of God in the life of a duck, but only to the degree that a duck has the capacity to reveal God as He really is. In this way, creation can be like a pair of binoculars that helps us to see the God behind the glory. But this effect could be magnified even further if we had a metaphoric telescope. Let's say the more something is like God, the more it can magnify God. Imagine then a creature that's actually made in the very image of God and is therefore able to give us not just binocular vision, but telescopic vision. Now, the Bible makes it pretty clear that there's something about human beings that makes them telescopically significant. In the Genesis story, we see God review His handiwork at the end of each period of creation, at each day of creation, with the statement, "It is good." But when He created humanity, He called His creation very good. Genesis 1 verse 31. Now, when humanity was created, creation itself was brought to its completion. It became fully functional and truly beautiful. Creation with people in it was creation in completion, and it was glorious. We'll have more to say about that later on. Now, elsewhere, King David is in wonder when he surveys the glories of God's creation, and he writes, and I quote, "When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them." That's all recorded in Psalm 8 verses 3 to 4. Now, most often when people read this passage, they understand it as if David is in lament, as if he were saying that humanity is nothing when compared with the creation, and that he's amazed that God would even bother to take thought of humankind. But the exact opposite is the truth. If we read on, we discover that God has crowned humanity with glory and honor and has made them rulers over the rest of creation. Psalm 8 verses 5 to 9. So David is in awe that God has assigned more glory to humanity than He has to the stars and the mountains and the creatures and everything else in creation. I'll never forget my wife telling me of a particular event at one of my children's school sports days. One of the girls in a running race was severely disabled, so the organisers arranged for her to start in the 100-metre dash 20 metres in front of all the others. Now, sadly, this girl stumbled and fell, and the rest of the children soon caught up to her. But instead of dashing past her, they helped her back on her feet and escorted her to the finishing line. And parents and children cheered together as she crossed the finishing line with her classmates, beaming a huge smile. Now, God was in that event. Something profound and wonderful was revealed about the nature of God in the actions of human beings that day. However, telescopes have their limitations too. Have you ever looked at the stars through an astronomer's telescope or gazed at images from the Hubble telescope? It's pretty amazing, and we can gain a lot of knowledge about the universe with the aid of these devices. But here's the thing, no matter how much magnification the telescope can muster, it doesn't enable us to actually see a star. What we're seeing with our eyes are ancient reports of stars. Now, there are stars out there that we think that we can see that have ceased to exist for thousands of years. All we're seeing is the light that is coming from that star from thousands of light years away. What we call stars are actually ancient images of stars, and even those images are distorted by cosmic radiation and the dust and pollution of our atmosphere. To really see a star, we would actually have to travel to it and land on its surface. In a similar way, we may be able to learn a lot about God in the glimpse of a bird's wing or in human acts of kindness. But even that which is revealed in the better parts of humanity still falls well short of the magnificence we could expect to see in the fully unveiled face of God. Now, the scriptures tell us that no one has seen God, John 1 verse 18. Although some might argue that Moses at least, has seen God. When he petitioned God, "Now show me your glory," in Exodus 33 verse 18, God replied to him and said, "When my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft of the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen." Exodus 33, 22 to 23. Now, whichever way you take this story and its significance, it must be said that Moses did not see the full glory of God. Sure, he saw something of the essential nature of God, but he did not see the face of God. Now, Moses received the law in his encounter with God, and through the law, the back of God is revealed. In other words, God is glorified by the law because it reveals his mercy, his justice, his kindness, his integrity, and much more besides. But it isn't God in all his fullness. So where do we see God as he really is in all his fullness? Well, the Apostle Paul, in his second letter to the Corinthians, gives us a clue when he writes, and I quote, "For God, who said, 'Let light shine out of the darkness,' made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ." That's 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 6. So what Paul is saying here is that when we look at the face of Jesus Christ, we're actually looking at the face of God fully revealed. Jesus is not just a teacher or a prophet, someone with a powerful telescope. He actually is God. Now, creation can only reflect the glory of God, but Jesus actually is God. Jesus Christ is the source of light itself. In him we see the pure relationships and perfect love that is between the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Now, all this would be enough, but there's something more we see when we look at the face of Jesus Christ. And it's this: we see a human face. So the God we see in Jesus Christ is so much more than a distant deity in the sky. On the contrary, we discover the God who willingly joins himself to our humanity in his Son, thus making it possible for us to encounter his life in a powerfully palpable way. In Jesus, not only do we see God as he really is, we also get a glimpse of what a truly glorious human being looks like. He gives us a perfect vision of what we could be, and this in turn ignites in us an aching desire that we would be what we could be. As C.S. Lewis explains, this yearning is far more than merely wishful thinking. And so I quote, "Apparently then, our lifelong nostalgia, our longing to be reunited with something in the universe from which we now feel cut off, to be inside of some door which we have always seen from the outside, is no mere neurotic fancy, but the truest index of our real situation. And to be at last summoned inside would be both glory and honour beyond all our merits, and also the healing of that old ache." End quote. So this longing for glory is a proper and appropriate desire that perfectly aligns with the designs that God has always had for the human race. In becoming human, Jesus has summoned us inside. that we might be immersed in the glory of God and not just onlookers of it, not just observers of it. And I'm convinced that this is one of the fundamental subtexts of the gospel. I mean, take for instance these words from the pen of the Apostle Paul, and I quote, "For those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. And those he predestined, he also called. And those he called, he also justified. And those he justified, he also glorified." That's Romans 8, verse 29. So notice the progression in this passage. It begins with God's premeditated intention from before time, captured in a definitive plan, leading to our personal call, followed up with a transforming restoration, making us fit and ready for the ultimate goal, which is glorification. So as far as Paul is concerned, the summit of the hill goes well beyond justification and goes to glorification, even to the point of being conformed to the image of his Son to such a profound degree that Jesus would be called our brother. You see, justification is not the end of the gospel. It is a means to the end, and the end is glorification. Now, the implications of all this are absolutely staggering. If Jesus is our brother, then that must mean that his Father is our Father. And knowing God as Father and relating to him as his son or his daughter is what it really means to be glorified, because this is the very thing we were created originally and purposefully to be. And to see God as he really is to see the Father who not only loves his Son, but also loves us and intentionally comes for us as a father comes for his children. And the whole creation attests to how beautiful that love is. But even this is not the end. We are not only loved, but loved into a purpose, which is to be God's representatives and regents on the earth. So if all this is true, then why isn't it being commonly proclaimed in every church and shouted from the mountaintops? Did we miss a turn somewhere? I think we did. I think the wrong turn that we took is that the church has become so engrossed with the magnificence of justification and the freedom that that justification brings that we've overlooked the grand purpose that justification serves, which is our glorification, our restoration to the purpose that we were originally created for, to be God's children, God's family, and to rule over the creation. We're not freed so that we can simply enjoy freedom. Rather, we are freed so that we can become what we're created to be, the sons of God. And by sons, when I say sons, I mean that in the sense of what that title really means, and that applies both to males and females. Let me illustrate. When my children were very young, we had a tradition that whenever I went away, say interstate or overseas, that I was required to bring back gifts for each of my children. And the longer I went away and the further I travelled, the bigger the gift had to be. Consequently, my children were very much in favour of extended trips to far-flung locations on the other side of the world. On one occasion, on one such trip, upon my return, my wife Catherine told me of the details of the discussions which took place between my children on the way to the airport. My three sons, I have 3 sons and 1 daughter, my 3 sons took turns calculating the probable size and value of the gift that they thought they might receive. I think Daddy will bring me a very big present, or I think Daddy will bring me a present that is worth at least $20. And so it went. But my daughter cut right across the basic tenor of this discussion, saying, "Well, I don't care what Daddy brings me, I just want Daddy back." Now, I know you're not meant to have favourites, but what can I tell you? Now, I have had the opportunity to observe the church in many countries and denominations, and it seems to me that we're all rather busy calculating the size and the value of the gift that God is giving to us. You know the things I mean: forgiveness of sin, justification, escape from judgment, and all the other benefits. But while we're doing this, we're not seeing the very thing that my daughter saw, that the most important thing is not the gifts that come from the relationship, but the person to whom we are relating in the first place. You know, it's a curious thing that in Christian discipleship we are taught both from the pulpit and by existential suffering that a man or woman's life does not consist in the abundance of his or her possessions. You know, Luke 12 verse 15 for instance, nor of his or her position in life, 1 John 2 verse 16. And then suddenly, after a lifetime of gaining this hard-won truth, are we then to abandon it in favour of mansions in the sky and streets of gold? I mean, have you ever assumed that when a beautiful young woman marries an aged but wealthy man, it's only for his money? Now, sadly, I believe this is exactly the sort of thing that many sermons seem to be encouraging. You know, come to Jesus and escape judgment, or put your faith in Christ and you will receive peace of mind. It's as if we're saying, marry Jesus for his money. And this misses everything that's important about glory. The amazing truth is that sharing in the glory of God is the ultimate goal of the gospel. We don't just get to admire the love of God, we get to participate in it. When this truth captures our attention, our view of the world can dramatically change. Now, as wonderful as all this sounds, believing it is not so easy. You know, the dull grind of our daily existence stunts the reach of our hope, and sorrow and guilt and shame can all conspire to cloud our vision with anger and self-loathing. Sure, these things might be true for those special holy people, but it couldn't possibly have anything to do with ordinary broken people like, you and me, could it? Yet even in the face of our own self-condemnation and incredulous minds, the hope of glory refuses to be silenced. Somewhere deep inside us, we have this universal and undeniable thirst and a nagging sense of purpose that defies even our own doubts. Could we really hope so universally for something that does not exist? Only in Jesus, as the true Messiah, does this hope of glory find its mark. And in him, life takes on new dimensions of meaning. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell and share this with as many people as you can. Bye for now.